Alright guys, next day here. We're tackling the first thing is the power steering fluid. As you can see, I had this rag and it's all wet. Power steering fluid is slowly dripping. We took all the brakes off. I actually found out something that even though we wheel brushed this whole surface, there's a lot of embedded rust over there. So we took a chisel, we chiseled out all the rust so at least the surface is flat. So the discs, both discs can lay flat on the spindle assembly here. We tried to clean off the spindle itself as well as we could. Again, let's tackle the power steering first. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cut one of the hoses there, let the fluid drain out. I'm gonna catch the fluid in a cup, try to reconnect it a different way. Well, I got the fluid leaking slowly. Just let it drain out. My wire wheel battery's dead, so we're gonna take a sawzall. Alright guys, we got the old line where it was leaking cut. I believe it had a pinhole right there. So we got that off. We reconnected just the hose, bypassed the leak. Let's put the fluid back in right now. Hope for the best. Hopefully that was the major leak in this vehicle. This thing was a pain in the butt to do. It took me about 2.5 to 3 hours altogether. I didn't have the right tools. As you can see, first I tried to cut that pipe this way. I had a sawzall. Then I ended up going back for another battery and used the drill there. Let's take this, pop that in. And since this is the low side of the power steering fluid, I'm hoping it's not high pressure where it's gonna cause a easy leak. Well, look at that, that's full right now. That means we gotta start the car up, turn it, let it air out because all those lines are aired in. So let's turn it on, move it side to side. But first guys, I think I'm gonna have to wash my hands because I know I'm not getting in the car with this kind of hand right there. Alright guys, big problem coming up in my workflow here. So I've bled the system, and the way you bleed the power steering fluid is you put the fluid into the reservoir first, then with the car lifted on both sides, you're going to turn slowly the wheel to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. Do that as many times as you possibly want to. Then you're going to start up the vehicle and also again move it to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right, and essentially that should bleed out the air from the power steering fluid lines. Now in my situation, once the car is on for about 45 seconds, the power steering pump makes noise. Before those 45 seconds, it doesn't make any noise. I can turn it side to side and it doesn't make any noise, and then it starts making noise. So I wonder if me cutting off this little portion of it affects some kind of flow, some kind of return. That seal where I mounted everything and clamped everything is reintroducing air possibly back into the power steering fluid, because once the car's running, or I wonder if the power steering fluid is pumping, if there's a little leak there, if it's not sealed perfectly tight, it might be reintroducing air back into the power steering pump, and that's why we're getting noise after about 45 seconds, because I've bled this thing a few times with the car off, with the car on, and I'm getting the similar results here, which is a real big bummer. I thought this job was going to be done by now, but unfortunately I'm gonna keep trying this method. Seems like I'm running low on power steering fluid shortly, but yeah, I'll get back to you guys when I get further into this. Sorry guys, it's a little loud. They're doing some construction here, but we got the Bauer heavy duty coarse pad for fast cutting. We are still rocking with the Turtle Wax compound. We are using the Harbor Freights Bauer dual action polisher with the pad. We sanded already the whole roof right now. It's nice and smooth, so we're just gonna run some compound and be able to see how well it takes off the oxidation. You gotta go further away. And guys, look at that difference. This is the buffed side with the coarse pad, and this is clearly the unbuffed side where the tape was. So we're gonna clean this all up, buff this up, and it is looking much better. Unfortunately, the clear coat failure, you can't do nothing about it, but overall this thing looks much better. I'm really happy with it. All right guys, it's been a really long day between the power steering hose and buffing this whole thing, and I just came home and re-washed this whole car, make sure I scrubbed a lot of the areas down. I mean, it's still got some residue from the compound, which we'll fine detail next time, you know, before we sell the car, of course. But we got majority of the wax and compound off the vehicle. Right now, having a nice cold brew, enjoying this summer night here. It's a little bit cooler, but man, let me tell you, let me just show you guys the car here. Man, that windshield still looks like butt. Did I even get this windshield? I must have missed this. But yeah, don't let your compounds dry out while buffing, man. It's a nightmare. Anyway, the vehicle looks so much better, guys. So much better. I mean, yeah, the paint, the faded clear coat here is obviously a big problem, but it's gonna have to be like that overall. Compared to what this vehicle looked like with the paint and the clarity to this, it actually looks like a solid color. It looks amazing with these headlights that are cleaner. I mean, all this right here used to be faded, completely faded. You cannot even have a hint of oxidation here. This whole pillar right here would be oxidized. Look how clean that looks. I mean, yeah, now you can actually see the paint defects here, but that's okay. This side, I remember we were wet sanding it just not too long ago today, and it looks fantastic. The rear end, don't worry about the water stains, but this thing looks pretty darn good. You can see the reflection over the whole area. Before, it was a nightmare. There was no reflection whatsoever. Same thing with this whole pillar. I mean, look at the roof, guys. There's still some standing water there and whatnot. I didn't clean it that well, but dang, that looks amazing. And again, all this was oxidized right here. We cleaned that up. Yeah, the hood's the worst, but man, this is a night and day difference. And all it took was some off-the-shelf rubbing compound from Turtle Wax, which is known to be a pretty crappy compound. You know, I didn't use McGuire's. I didn't go with the professional line of McGuire's and whatnot. And then all it took was a buffer from Harbor Freights. This was like a $70 buffer, a $10 pad, which was the coarse pad, but I'm sure we can get this job done with a $40 buffer from Harbor Freights as well. This is my first time that was actually like compounding a vehicle, and man, I am impressed. All I have was just orbital buffer at home, those little cheap ones that won't scratch the paint. And yeah, that thing, I was buffing the rear trunk, as you guys seen probably on one of the playlists, one of the videos. I was buffing just this for like 3 hours, and it didn't yield anything close to the results that this real buffer yielded us with like 10 minutes of work and a proper buffing pad. So again, guys, I'm very happy with the car right now. Now, the only problems that still exist are the power steering fluid. Yes, we changed one of the hoses, but it seems like at the pump it's actually leaking. It's actually leaking at the pump here with a gasket, so that needs to get fixed. And then the next thing we have to do is this wheel bearing right here. This wheel bearing is probably bad and making noise and wobbling, and that's why it's pulling to the left. So with that, we can either one, get a new wheel bearing, and that's a lot of work. We got to press it out. There's a special key that goes on the axle nut. It's possible. I'm kind of excited to do it, but at the same time, time is running out. I don't know if I will do it. One thing we can do in order to minimize the pull to the left, we can actually change the toe. We can turn the wheel further in, so even though it's wobbling a little bit, pulling to the left, we can adjust that to this wheel to point more to the right, and hopefully that can yield us a straight driving car to kind of offset the bad wheel bearing. Yes, it's a very temporary fix, of course. It's not a long-term solution, but if someone's flipping a vehicle or something like that, as long as it's pointing straight, it's not pulling to the side, it'll be much better. Anyway, guys, on this note, that's gonna be the end of today's video. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. On to the next video. We'll see what else we can do with this vehicle. Peace.
I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it off for you. Come along and see it's true, but the world is pretty cold. You might need a sweater too. I'ma put it right on ya. Kid from California, trying to make it in life. In school they never taught ya. Dreams of my